All right, so I have had my Lost Creek Angler sit on top kayak, 10.5 or 10.5 foot kayak for about a yearish now, and I figured it was time to do kind of a long-term review on it. So with Father's Day coming up and 4th of July, I figured there'd be a lot of sales on these. So I wanted to do a review for those of you who are looking at purchasing one. Because full price they're roughly around $1,500 to $1,600 but I mean when the sales hit, I think I got mine for about $1,200. So if you're looking to buy or if you're looking to buy a pedal kayak and you're looking for a budget friendly one, yeah, now's the time to buy, at least around the holidays. Keep an eye out for those holiday sales. Memorial Day, that's going to be a big one. Father's Day, I think, is when I bought mine last year. And then 4th of July, I think, is their biggest sale. But at that point, we're halfway, through, not halfway through the summer, but we're well into fishing season. So I'm going to go over, let me get my cheat sheet out here. I'm going to go over a couple points. We're going to start with the good, what I like about it, some of the improvements, and then I'll talk about a few upgrades I've done specifically to just, the usability of the kayak, not necessarily like sonar and downriggers and stuff like that. I'll do another video about my actual fishing setup, which has all of my different, upgrades, fishing upgrades for it. But first, start with, the good. Best thing about it is, bang for the buck, especially if you get this thing on sale for $1,200, $1,100. This is probably one of the best budget pedal kayaks out there. For the price, you're getting, full-on pedal kayak. It's got, the adjustable seat. It's got a really good track system, which we'll get into in a minute. It's got, features like the bungees. It does actually have a front bungee as well, but I take that off because with fishing, it's a bungee net. Excuse me. So I take that off to avoid getting hooks stuck in it. But if you do want to load a bunch of gear up front and bungee it down, it's got that. I just don't use it. It comes with all the scupper plugs, all that good stuff. And for $1,200, there's not a lot of them out there that have those kind of features. Next thing is, being that it is a more budget-friendly kayak, the plastic is a bit cheaper, or not cheaper, well, it's obviously cheaper, but it's thinner, which actually really helps out with the weight. I think this thing comes in without the pedal drive on it, somewhere around 70 pounds. So it is, excuse me, a little easier to car top than say like an Old Town Sportsman. My buddy has one of those and it probably weighs about 30 pounds more than my kayak. Probably about 20 pounds more than my kayak. So having the lightweight is very nice. And being that it is a store brand, so Sportsman, it's the Lost Creek version. But basically this is just a Riot Mako, but it's the Sportsman's version of it. So there are a pretty good availability of spare parts, like, drive parts, chairs, all the, pretty much everything, the whole steering system, which we'll get into in a minute. But there are parts widely available for it. I mean, it's not a Hobie, it's not an Old Town, so it's not that widely available, but they are out there. So if something does break, which I'm sure at some point something is gonna break, I know at least I can go out and get myself some spare parts. So like I mentioned, it does have a lot of the features. So it does have the front bungee up here. It's the year I bought, it was a mesh net that went across. And then it's got the bungees in the back to hold your tackle box or your cooler or whatever else you want to hold back there. It also has, it does have rod holders. But unfortunately they are not, they're not super tight. So my rod does, let me grab a rod. Do I have a short one? Let's see. Hopefully this won't hit the ceiling. Ooh, barely makes it. So the rod holders are a bit loose and they are kind of awkwardly placed, which we'll talk about in a sec. But so the rod holders are a little awkwardly placed. There's two in the back, two in the front. What I mainly use the rod holders for themselves is I use them for my fishing net. So I plop my fishing net back here so I can easily reach behind me and scoop up fish. The other thing that's nice is the amount of tracking that's on here. So you've got your seat and your steering system are both on the track, but it's nice because you have tracking all the way along the side, so you can actually add gear when you need it. As you can see, I've got quite a few gear mounts on here, and actually I have a cup holder because that's one of the things that's lacking. So I do have a cup holder over here. So you do have the 2 full-length tracks from here to about there. I'd say they're between 2.5 and 3 feet. You do also have some tracking under here, which is meant to hold your seat on. But I actually just took the screw off because it was just kind of a hassle to have another place to put the seat on, because the seat does hook in through the tracking. But I did find it to be a little annoying. So I'll get a close-up of all the tracking that I'll splice in right about here while I talk. But yeah, so you have some under-seat tracking. You also have some tracking in the back, so if you're not running a gearbox, you do have the ability to, you know, put, say, a track-mounted rod holders back here. And then you also have some tracking right up front, which I actually throw my GoPro on, so all the videos I shoot, that's where the GoPro's mounted. I'm not having to have some weird clamp system or put new tracking on the side like I see a lot of people do with the Sportsman's, to have a camera mount right there, or more tracks back here. I will probably actually add some tracks back here, mainly for a flag, so when I'm kokanee fishing out on the lakes, I don't get run over. So, you know, we'll sum it up. Oh, and it also comes with all the scupper plugs, which is nice. You don't have to buy scupper plugs. So each scupper hole, there's 2 here, 1 up front, and 2 in the back. So it does have all your scupper plugs, and they are attached by bungees, which is nice. And I believe you have another, yeah, you have 2 scuppers under your seat too. So when I'm fishing, especially in the, you know, late fall, early spring, the water's freezing, the water drains out of this pretty good. So I'm not ever sitting there with like soaking wet feet. And when those lovely bigger boats come by and splash a nice wake over my bow or over my side, it drains out pretty quick. So now time to move on to some of the things that I am less thrilled about. And I'm sure if you've looked up reviews on this before, you're going to read about the steering. The stock steering system sucks. It's very stiff. There's not a lot of leverage. It's a very short, maybe 2.5-inch dial that you turn from side to side that is very stiff, and it's terrible. So what I did is I spent about $100, got the feel-free 8-ball steering system here. It's got a pretty long lever, so it gives you plenty of leverage to move that steering, or move that rudder back and forth. I used all the tubing that was stock. I just ran the new cables through. And as I mentioned before, the stock steering system hooks the tracks. So what I did is I got some just track screws and the little tabs that go in your track off Amazon for a couple bucks. And I mounted them to the silver side plate, or the silver plate that normally you screw into the side of your feel-free kayak. I use those to mount the screws for the track mount. And honestly, best upgrade I found for this kayak. It's absolutely fabulous. It makes actually pedaling around where you're having to steer a lot just way better. My hand was cramping and getting tired with the stock system, so having this thing on here made all the difference, because I was pretty frustrated at the beginning. I also found, I actually do have a short video on it, and I'll post it, you know, stick it somewhere around here. I'll put a link to it, of a little steering system hack where I actually loosened the rudder bolt that holds it on and then put another locking nut right underneath it to keep it from backing out more. But that actually relieved some of the tension on the rudder itself, making it turn, so that made it turn even easier. Eventually, I do plan to swap out the rudder as a whole and get a beaver tail rudder, a little bit bigger rudder, just to give me a little bit more control, because that rudder is pretty thin. Next thing, like I said, plastic. Plastic is thin, so I anticipate at some point I'm gonna have to do some repairs when I run into something or something runs into me. This will definitely crack a lot easier than a Hobie or an Old Town. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen, but it's that weight to thickness / quality. And plus, you know, this is a, like I said, $1,200 haul versus, you know, an Old Town or a Hobie, you're looking $2,500 to $3,000 range. So, you know, get what you pay for. The next kind of complaint I have is the drive system. It is a little clunky. It has developed a squeak, which I'm not sure if it's coming from the pedals or if it's coming from somewhere inside the drive system. It does have a flush port to where you can actually clean it out, so I'm gonna actually clean it out this weekend, flush it out, see if there's any grit or something in there, something causing that squeak. Also, I'm gonna, you know, grease up or oil up the pedals. Maybe that might be what's causing the squeak. I notice it after I pedal when I'm kayak fishing for quite a few hours. The other thing with the drive system I can't stand, that the Old Town has definitely figured out, is I'll cut in here and show you a visual of it, but where the prop comes out, you see right here, it's the same width as the drive system, so you actually have to line the prop up through this really chintzy plastic splash guard to pull it out to make sure the prop is aligned vertically. Whereas with an Old Town, it's got a wider cutout that allows you to just flip the prop up at any time. So if you're coming into shore too quick, or you're coming up on something that you know you have to lift your prop up, it's kind of a pain to like really get in there and make sure that you're gonna be able to get it out and you have it straight. Other than that, like, you know, again, this is a $1,200 drive system versus a $2,500 to $3,000 drive system. But I haven't had any problems with it. You know, prop hasn't fallen off, prop hasn't broken. I've run it into quite a few things. There's quite a few scratches on my prop guard down there. But, you know, other than that, the drive system is great. I just wish it had that cutout so I could get it out. And then, you know, the squeak is driving me nuts. So I'm going to figure that out, and I'll post maybe a short or something that I'll eventually tie to this video. If I ever figure out what the fix is for that. As I mentioned, there is a lack of cup holders and rod holders. So I showed you how the rod holders are. They're not very tight, they're not very secure, and they point straight up. And if you kayak fish at all, you know how much of a pain it is to change lures and stuff with your rod at like an odd angle or sitting in your lap. So I actually have rod holders, the Yak Attack rod holders that I throw on here when let me grab one here. So I actually have some Yak Attack rod holders here that I put on. These are mainly for kokanee fishing, but when I bass fish, I actually just angle them out to where I have I kind of pull them back and angle them up to where I have a nice forward facing kind of inward rod holder that I can drop my rod in when I'm either taking a fish off or you know, changing out a lure. And I also have the Yak Attack cup holder over here that fits my big old you know, Yeti slash what is it, whatever, all those aluminum water cans. That's kind of my other complaint, is they do have a slot for water right under the seat, but honestly, it's kind of a hassle. I'm never able to actually get my water underneath that bungee, and my water bottle's too big. So if you have little plastic water bottles, it works fine to set it under your seat, but you know, it is, you know, it's not great. The other thing I've added kind of as an upgrade is seat risers from 3D Yak Designs. I'll leave a link to them down below. I'm actually going to leave a link to all of the upgrades I've done to it in links below. Some of them, if they're Amazon links, they're affiliate links, so I get a little bit back, so, you know, helps out the channel a little bit. But these are 3-inch seat risers because I always felt that I was too low when I was pedaling. So it was just kind of, it caused a little bit of knee pain. I actually had a bad knee, but earlier this year I blew my knee out and had knee surgery, so they fixed all that. But the seat risers really alleviated all the knee pain and gave me a much more comfortable fishing position and or pedaling position. It did raise my center of gravity a bit, but stability wise, this thing is pretty dang stable. I stand and fish in this thing all the time. So I didn't really notice too much of a stability change with raising the seat up about 2.5, 3 inches. But you know, these things are awesome. They're pretty cheap. And 3D Yak Designs also has rod holders, you know, side rod holders where you can carry your rods horizontal. I have those as well. I use those when I bass fish quite a bit, just to, you know, I carry a lot of rods. And it allows me to have them real quick to where I'm not having to turn around to my box in the back, which kind of leads me to the next kind of complaint I have is the back storage area is just a little too narrow. For me to fit my kayak box in, so I actually have to turn it sideways to where it opens sideways and out, which is a little sketchy because I'm always worried the top box, I'm gonna forget to close it and everything's all my tackle in the top's gonna fall out, but it does work. I put it in sideways. I'll leave a link to my tackle box in there. It's not the Yak Attack black box or whatever it is. It's like a Fluger or something like that. I can't remember, but I'll leave a link to it. So I wish this was a little wider back here. That said, that would probably put a lot more drag on the kayak to widen out the back and make it a little less hydrodynamic. So it'd be a little harder to pedal, a little slower, a little more sluggish, probably not as nimble, because this is a pretty nimble kayak, especially once you change out the steering and you can really work it back and forth. I've taken into some tight little areas, and with the forward and reverse, I can usually back myself out and maneuver myself out pretty well, because it does track pretty well. I think that's pretty much it for my complaints. But you know, it seemed like there was a lot, but really there's not. I mean, these are really nitpicky things other than the steering. The steering, they've got to fix this. It sucks. But other than the steering, and you know, this is, you know, it's $100, so you know, you got to kind of either, you know, I knew it was an issue when I bought it, but I figured I'd try it, see how bad it was, because they did make some changes back in 2024 to fix it a little bit from what I understand. I guess there was some rubbing on the cables and the cables were snapping. But when I got out and started kokanee fishing a lot, just the accuracy of the tracking just wasn't there because it was too hard to really finely adjust the rudder position. But with this on here, it makes it real easy to adjust it. So like I said, for $1,200, I don't think there is a better pedal kayak out there that comes with this amount of features, has parts available, isn't, you know, some random company that you can't get a hold of. Mako, you know, is a pretty large company, so it's pretty easy to find parts for it when you need it. And honestly, it served me well. I've probably got well over 100+ hours on this thing already. And everything still works perfectly on it. And I'm pretty rough. I drag this thing, I beat it up quite a bit. Oh, that, you know, reminds me, I do have Kydex. I molded some Kydex with some 3M stickies to put here on the back, so when I am having to pick it up and drag it, I'm not wearing through the hull. And I also have one up on the keel up at the front, which actually just popped off. My glue after about 100 hours being out there has finally popped off, so I got to put that back on. Just a little extra protection. You know, I buy a sheet of Kydex on Amazon for $20-30 and just heat mold it with a heat gun. It was pretty easy. I actually had a big sheet and I did it with all my buddies with kayaks. We all put on Kydex little Kydex guards, I guess. Somebody out there probably makes one for this, or the Mako, so you could probably buy one, but honestly, it was cheap, it was easy. It took me 20 minutes to do. But yeah, so like I said, bang for buck. It's pretty hard to beat the Lost Creek Angler 10.5. And yeah, I really like it. And if you have any questions, please go ahead, leave them in the comments below. I'll answer them best I can. And like I said, all the links for all the upgrades I've done are going to be down in the description below. I'll even include, you know, the links for my lumbar pad and my seat pad. I mean, that's kind of a common kayak thing is, you know, not a lot of lumbar support on these, you know, lawn chair style seats, and not a lot of padding for your butt. So when you're kokanee fishing for 6, 7, 8 hours at a time, little lumbar support helps. But yeah, like I said, leave me any questions, and thanks for watching. And if you found this helpful and informative, please like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. It helps the channel grow. It helps me out by you know, getting more eyeballs on the channel. So thanks. Have a good one.